Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Marvel Comics Presents Wolverine, number 4, cover dated early October 1988. Now, the cover is not the very best one that there's ever been for Marvel Comics Presents, nor is it the best ever version of Wolverine there's ever been. Just look at the thickness and size of those claws extruded from his hands there. And the pencils are by Al Milgrom, better known for his inking than his penciling. The inker, he's not inking his own pencils here, the inker is P. Craig Russell. And to me, to my eye, it seems like this cover is a thumbnail that was blown up because there's very little in the way of detail on this. The line work is very thick. The hatching is huge and wide apart. You can see it here on the musculature on Razor Fist. Yeah, not the greatest cover that there's ever been. And I'm imagining Stan Lee looking at this in the 1960s and saying, no, we want to have a clearer look at our protagonist, at our hero here, Wolverine. And instead, and perhaps some of you have made this observation already to yourselves, where is your focus going? Is it going to Wolverine and his claws and the action up here? Or is it going to Razor Fist's, shall we say, posterior? So yeah, quite an unusual cover, really, in many ways. But let's get this one opened to what is good in this issue, and that is the Chris Claremont and John Buscema Wolverine story, which has now reached chapter 4. Here are the credits over here. Writer Chris Claremont, penciler John Buscema, inker Klaus Janson, letterer Tom Orzechowski, and colorist Glynis Oliver. And up here we have our little what's happened to date. Wolverine has been taken prisoner by Madripoor's crime lord Roach, and none of Roach's enemies have ever left that villain's citadel alive. So the title of this chapter, chapter 4, is The Ordeal. That is quite the splash page there. Really great work by John Buscema and complemented by Klaus Janson's brushwork. You really get a sense of how Janson is bringing a grittiness to Buscema's pencils, and also it's clear to me that Buscema is not gritting this out. He's doing the perspective here in the torture dungeon just all by eye. But I like the fine details. Like if you look in here in high definition, you can see Klaus Janson doing in the wood grain there on the side of this torture instrument. It's very good stuff. Great attention to detail. So the first person narration, it's Wolverine's, of course. And I just like the way that Claremont characterizes him, his toughness and also his dryness of expression. I've seen better places, better days, he starts. I assume I'm still somewhere in Madripoor, Island Principality, south of Singapore. So we get details that just basically catch us up on what's happened so far. But this is an interesting detail where he says, I came here as a favour to a dying man. That's his friend Dave Chappell, whose last words were save the tiger. And that gives us the overarching story, or the title for the overarching story of issues 1 through 10 of Marvel Comics Presents. Now he continues saying here, and again it's this kind of dry stoicism of Wolverine's. Things have been going from bad to worse ever since. I don't like cages or chains now that I've woken up. Sooner I hit the road. And, you know, we fill in for him. Sooner he hits the road, the better. But turn the page and there's an interruption by the arrival of, and we only learned her name in the last issue, Sapphire Styx. So she's all dressed up provocatively here to tease and taunt Wolverine. And so there she is saying, I told you we'd wake you up, baby, before the fun began. And Wolverine, in his thoughts, says to himself, actually, she said, before you die. And that's correct from the end of the previous issue. So she knocked him out with her kiss. And he continues in his first person narration as she kisses him again. I tried to struggle, but nothing works. I barely stirred the chains. Then her lips lock onto mine, and I'm drowning. So, you know, like Claremont, there has been commentary around some of the situations and costuming that Claremont plays around with in his X-Men and other comics, how there is sometimes a BDSM type subtext. And that's coming through a little bit here as well. It's all there only for the adult to see it. No child reader is ever going to put that together, but it's there. It's the double coding that Claremont is pretty good at, it is a motif of his that runs through his work, that BDSM subtext. So we learn a little bit more maybe about Sapphire Styx in these first-person narration captions of Wolverine's. Darkness growing deeper, consuming me without and within, my lifelight, the natural energy of my being, shining more and more dimly as Sapphire steals it for her own. So that, Sapphire is a femme fatale, but it seems here that she's a bit of a vampire. And I'm reminded of Celine from Claremont's X comics around this time, who's also a type of vampire, a mutant type of vampire. But is Sapphire Styx a mutant too, or is she some other kind of creature? Well, we don't learn it in this particular chapter. So she says here, "Oh Lordy, it's such a waste of time to leave you to Roach's tender mercies. I've never tasted such a primal, powerful essence. If I dared defy him, I'd steal you for my very own." And Wolverine here is entranced. She's more beautiful than ever, while I can hardly breathe. My heart can hardly beat. So she truly was stealing his life essence, very like Selene, as I said. And then the master criminal arrives, Roach. And I've said before, he seems to me to be patterned on Vincent Price, but a John Buscema version of Vincent Price. I like the little detail here of Razor Fist kind of lowering his head in order to get through the doorway, because he's huge. Like Razor Fist is like 7 foot tall. And Roach here speaks like a cultured, cultivated villain. Fortunately, dear Sapphire, your intellect and instinct for self-preservation rules your passion. I trust you've rendered our guest appropriately tractable. Weak as a kitten, she says. Splendid, he replies. So now he gets to the point, introduces himself to Logan. I'm Roach. You've already met Sapphire and my chief enforcer, Razor Fist. I am the premier crime lord of Madripoor, which in this part of the world is a very great thing indeed. Recently, however, an upstart known only as the Tiger has arisen to challenge me. The late, unlamented Mr. Chapel was an associate of this person and ultimately a guest. So this is more information for us now, as you are now in these very chambers, where through the good offices, of course he's being ironic here, of my faithful inquisitor, he was persuaded to reveal all he knew about my new rival. So we see the Inquisitor here going through his torture instruments. Regrettably, that proved to be distressingly little. I thought Mr. Chapel disposed of until you arrived on the scene, having evidently encountered that gentleman before his demise. Hence I feel obliged to seek from you what I did from him. Again, great tough guy dialogue from Wolverine. Love that top-down shot there as the torture instruments are being heated up in the fire. Suppose I've nothing to tell. For your sake, my friend, replies Roach, I pray that it is not so. So here's the Inquisitor coming forward with this heated piece of metal that he's going to work his... what would you say, like his malevolent skills on Wolverine. And then the scene switches to Dawn, the Princess Bar. So the implication is that Wolverine's been tortured through the night. And at the Princess Bar, we have O'Donnell, and he is obviously going through the accounts from the night before. A prosperous night, Mr. O'Donnell, says someone off panel. Worth the effort, he replies. Roach sent his bully boys to give you trouble. I survived, he says. I'm told that the stranger who helped you is in Roach's hands. So who's this figure in silhouette? Too bad, I liked him. Who was he? Dunno, he says. I'd never seen him before. She says it's Janson Hohen. It's been revealed to us now in these bottom panels. But he knew me from the old days, she says. Who you were, Jess, not who you are. He can't tell Roach anything that can harm you. So these two are known to each other and, quote unquote friendly. So this is interesting, intriguing. And Jessan says, then he will die, O'Donnell, as Dave Chappell did. I couldn't save the one, how can I abandon the other? That's interesting that she says that after mowing him down with the motorbike in the previous issue. So O'Donnell replies as he pours her a coffee or tea, ever stop to consider that may be precisely what Roach is counting on. You doing something noble and stupid. So now we're going to get a very Claremontian piece of characterization for one of his female characters. Once, not so long ago, I would have, without a second thought. But those days are gone, that woman no more. And the saddest thing is, I don't even miss her. That's pure Claremont there. Really, really good stuff. So, days end, 14 hours later. Wolverine's been tortured the whole time. And Sapphire says further interrogation, the Inquisitor says further interrogation at this time is pointless, sir. I like that establishing shot. And Roach there strokes his chin and says, I wanted results, Inquisitor, and you shall have them, replies the Inquisitor. For now, though, I suggest giving our guest the night to recover some of his strength and contemplate the agonies to come. So Roach there, this is a really cruel detail, stubs out his cigarette on Logan's face and walks off with a threat. I'm not kind to those who fail me. So the Inquisitor asks, have I ever, sir? Always a first time, sweet, says Sapphire, and coming, boss, as she trails Roach out the door. So the Inquisitor here lifts up Logan's face. You're a magnificent specimen, stranger. That's very Claremontian as well. The use of that adjective, magnificent. It resonates throughout his work. Whether you talk or no, I shall enjoy breaking you, and rest assured, break you I shall. And Razorfist has been there the whole time, but he's saying nothing. But look at the way he looks back at Wolverine hanging from those chains in the torture dungeon. So let's turn the page now. Great colours across these pages as well by Glynis Oliver. And let's see. This page is a great page, and definitely one that, if in the previous issue John Buscema was looking at Mark Silvestri's art on Uncanny X-Men 229, it is for sure that Silvestri was studying Buscema on Marvel Comics Presents. And this page in particular, he was looking at this in respect of what he would do in Uncanny X-Men 251 when the Reavers crucified Wolverine and tortured him. So Wolverine here is back to his first person narration. If I yell loud enough, this is really interesting. If I yell loud enough inside my mind, will Psylocke's telepathy hear those psychic cries and send the X-Men to the rescue? So that's a reminder that he is part of the X-Men team, that he does have a psychic rapport, in particular with Psylocke. But this is what he decides. Macho and tough, the blazes with that. I got into this mess without their help, I'll get out the same way. Now that I'm alone, I'm free to act. Fortunately, it doesn't take any physical strength to pop my claws. A mental cue triggers the relays that extends them from bionic housings built into my forearms. Blades are forged of pure adamantium, they'll cut through anything. Flick of the wrist, toss of the arm, takes care of my wrist chains, which turns out to be about all I have strength for. So really great sequence here, of course. Claremont, for the first time reader, giving us an explanation of Wolverine's claws, the bionic housings, the adamantium, all of that. But I've said in the previous video that I really like the way he does it. He always slightly changes the phrases. There's both repetition and slight alterations, subtle alterations of the phrasing. And it's always interesting to read just how he does it. But this whole little scene, when you think about it, and you think about the fact that Wolverine was tortured for 14 hours, it just gives you a sense of the measure of his toughness, that he wasn't ever desperate enough to pop the claws and cut his way out from the awful situation he found himself in. That's how tough he is, that he took the torture, he took the ordeal in order not to give away the fact of his advantage, the adamantium, the claws. But all of the beating he took and the torture, it took a toll. and so he goes unconscious. How long I'm down and out, I got no idea, he says, as he pulls himself up off the floor. Really like the rendering of the musculature there on his arm and shoulder and back. It's really good stuff. And so he continues with his first person narration about his mutant powers and his healing factor. And he says here, the more serious the hurt, the longer that takes, the healing. And right now I'm about as bad off as can be. Blind instinct leads me to an outside garden. And I love the way he's kind of stumbling into the garden there. That's great body language from Buscema. No guards, not sure what I can do if I meet any. And then who, of course, is there hiding behind a bush except for Razor Fist. So Razor Fist knew that Wolverine wasn't beaten, and he says to him, I've been expecting you, stranger. And I like the first person narration from Logan. Terrific. Thought things were too good to be true. Razor Fist continues and says, I knew a will. And this is another key Claremont phrase, indomitable. A heart as courageous as yours would find a way out of Roach's abattoir. So Wolverine's enemies always admiring him, but Razor Fist in particular admiring his toughness and his courage. So now they're going to fight again. Never met Razor Fist, he says. Heard of him though. Had his hand surgically replaced with super keen swords. And this is hilarious. So Claremont, including what an older reader might wonder about Razor Fist, always wondered how he eats or gets dressed. Never mind eating or getting dressed. What about how he goes to the toilet? Those are the questions that older readers want answered. In any case, Razor Fist here. When last we met, my blades were in their scabbards. Tonight they're unsheathed. I know you've nothing to tell, Roach. And he admires Logan on that. So I offer instead of the torment of another day in the Inquisitor's hands, the release of a quick, clean warrior's death. But he stabs him here in the gut. Again, great musculature on the back there. Buscema and Janson working very well together. So now we get a few panels of a fight, but Wolverine, remember, is badly injured and depleted from the torture. He hasn't fully healed up. My bones are laced with adamantium. He says they can't be broken, but I can be cut. I tried to fight, but my mind's too tired to think. My body too wasted to obey. I'm dead meat. And look at that. He is stabbed in the throat. That's what we're seeing there. But you have to think about it, because of course this is a code approved comic, and he falls head first back into the river, falls over this cliffside into the harbour, and Razor Fist's monologue here explains what's going on and what he's going to say to Roach. My regrets, Mr. Roach, my report shall say, but the prisoner was slain while attempting to escape. His body swept downriver, over the cliff to the harbour below. I wish we'd met under different circumstances, stranger, and in a fairer fight. I've a feeling you'd have made a worthy foe, and I salute you. This guy's like a gladiator, yes? To be continued next issue. But we know there's going to be a rematch, and when Wolverine takes this guy on again, things are not going to go as they did in this particular round one between them. But great work by the whole creative team, all working really well together. Excellent stuff. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Marvel Comics Presents Wolverine number 4. Let me know your thoughts on this one, in particular this really odd cover as well, if you have any thoughts on that. Let us know in the comment section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like the video and share it. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.